When you have done all you have been commanded, say, we are unprofitable servants. We have done what we were obliged to do. Which could also be translated, say, we are useless, good-for-nothing servants. Those are hard words. If we hear them, I think we all need to take a step back and evaluate our life and our discipleship. Where am I on that path? I think Jesus is cautioning us of not falling into kind of a subtle trap. For instance, many could think, hey, I'm all right. Keep the commandments. Hey, I go to church. Hey, I'm nice. Well, friends, that might be baseline. Baseline. A priest I knew said, Catholics are very good Jews. So what do you mean? He says, well, when you go to hear them in confession, they just talk about the 10 Commandments. It's good. But Jews do that too. Something of our faith adds more than that. I think this is illustrated well by a best-selling book by Jim Collins. It's called Good to Great. It's actually a book on business. It's not on theology. And what the book reveals is 5 years of extensive research into a fundamental question about business. He's trying to answer the question why some companies are just good while other companies make the leap to being great. And this is his conclusion. Good is the enemy of the best. And that is the key reason why we have so little that becomes great. We don't have great schools principally because we have good schools. We don't have great government principally because we have good government. Few people attain great lives in large part because it is just so easy to settle for a good life. The vast majority of companies never become great precisely because the vast majority of companies become quite good. And that is their main problem. And that is today's gospel. It's one thing to be good. It's another thing to be great. When I read this book by Jim Collins, I couldn't help thinking of the Christian church and discipleship in general. And I thought, most churches are pretty good. And the vast majority of followers of Jesus are good people. But the result often is that we stay there. We don't strive for great. St. Norbert's is a good church, but it's called to be an amazing church. Many people are good in their discipleship, but we're called to be great in our discipleship. Now, being an amazing church isn't because we do innovative and slick things. And being great in our discipleship isn't because we're better than others. To be amazing, to be great, is to be amazing and great in one thing: grace. To be amazing in God's grace and become great in God's grace for each of us and through us to others. Pope Francis wrote this. He said, "We are revolutionaries. And what is more, revolutionaries of this revolution. For we have taken this road to the greatest metamorphosis in human history. In this day and age, unless Christians are revolutionaries, they are not Christians. They must be revolutionaries through grace. Grace itself. You and I are called to be revolutionaries in grace. This is not a revolution of economics and politics. It's a revolution of the change of the human heart, of the transformation of the human life through grace, through encountering the risen Jesus and becoming fervent disciples. See, friends, faith is standing before God who loves us. And in the presence of this loving God, we trust God. In fact, we surrender to God. That's faith. A surrender of everything. My past, present, future, my mind, my emotions, my time, talent, treasure, the direction of my life, my path. I surrender in trust to the one who loves me. All of it. And we're open to his invitation to become transformed as persons and to transform the world. When we surrender, we receive an explosion of spiritual power. And that power comes to us to the extent that we surrender. Our life of discipleship is one of surrender and receiving grace, spiritual power. Paul says this, to a power working in us that can do infinitely more than we can ask or imagine. Infinitely more than anything at this point that we've asked or anything at this point that we even could imagine. This is not a dumbed down Christianity. This is a Christianity of faith, a discipleship that's open to more than we at this point have even imagined possible. For in grace, all things are possible. It says in the beginning of today's gospel, if you have the faith, the size of a mustard seed, tiniest of all seeds, you would say to this mulberry tree, be uprooted and planted in the sea. If you have a modicum of faith, a tiny amount of faith, you can pull up something that's deeply rooted. They knew the mulberry tree had deep roots. They knew it was impossible to transplant that tree. They knew what Jesus is saying was impossible. But he doesn't care about trees. He cares about the deep roots in you and me of selfishness and greed and the injustice in our culture. He cares about our fears and our selfishness. He wants to rip out those in faith to set us free, to do the impossible. It's why we're here. If we could do all this on our own, we don't need to be here. Disciples begin this gospel by saying, Jesus, increase our faith. Do you want your faith increased? Maybe you don't. Maybe you're all right where you are. But if you want it increased, Jesus says, exercise it. Do it. Act on it. Be part of it. In the second reading, Paul says, beloved. He loves these people. Beloved, I remind you to stir into a flame the gift of God that you have through the imposition of my hands. For God did not give us a spirit of cowardice, but a spirit of power. Friends, each of you have had a bishop lay his hands on your head, and you've received the Holy Spirit in confirmation. It's given. Now it's our job to stir it into a flame. It's our job. God doesn't force God's self on us. It's our job. Do you ever see a fire when it gets kind of dulled down a little, just the embers? Do you ever blow on it? You fan it, and all of a sudden it pops. That's what we're meant to do with the Holy Spirit within. Fan into a flame the Spirit you have received, that you might live in the power of that Spirit by doing it, by exercising it. Now, it's very important we don't judge anyone else on this, but we look at this gospel in terms of our own life. I mean, some people spend heroic effort just to come to church. I visit people who are homebound and they live profound discipleship. The saints lead the way in this. Therese of Lisieux, a little saint, went to a monastery. She was homebound. She used to complain, I can never do great things, so I'll do little things with great love. And in her homebound state, something remarkable happened in her life. Her parents had 9 kids and owned their own business, and in that crazy life, they became holy people. See, friends, this applies to each of us in whatever circumstance our life is in. This isn't for some elite. This is written to disciples of Jesus Christ. All of us. All of us. So maybe you want to take a step forward. I'll give you some options. In our parish, we have some initiatives that are new this year. We're going to increase our welcoming ministry. We want to have someone at every door welcoming people to this church. So if you like to smile, and if you're really excited to see people come to St. Norbert's, that might be for you. And maybe it's 20 minutes a month. But 20 minutes a month might be the first step in your unleashing a power in your life. Maybe you say, well, I'm too introverted and shy for that, Deacon John. Well, we're trying to develop a book and CD ministry. You can do that in your computer. We're trying to get people to work on the sound system and be trained. All one-person job. We want people to help with hospitality and make things. Easy stuff, like 20 minutes a month, half hour a month. Stepping out. We're going to be doing small groups again in Lent. 6 weeks, hour and a half. I've been in different small groups for 20 years because it forms my discipleship. We also started a fervent disciple ministry starting this month where I give presentations on what it means to be a fervent disciple and what it means to encounter Christ. It takes an hour and 15 minutes, 6 weeks. Or maybe you love children. We have a cafe program, and our religious ed is now not just about educating children, but forming them in the faith to encounter Jesus in an age-appropriate way. We have a liturgy at the 9 and the 11:30, a children's liturgy of the word. Well, the children leave this church and go to the oratory to reflect on the gospel and what we're doing in church in an age-appropriate way. So they're part of this, so it works. And we're trying to do a babysitting ministry for babies. Maybe that's for you. There's a table in the back, information only, no registration. Sign your name and email, check off what you want. Someone will send you information. Friends, whatever it is, where is the nudge of the Holy Spirit in your life now? Where can you step back and listen to this gospel and say, yeah, I'm baseline. And where is he calling you to step forward? When we have done all we've been commanded, we are to say, we are unprofitable servants.